There she is.
He's good. It's a full month.
He doesn't want anybody knowing his name. Nah, it's fine. I'd lose him anyway.
Oh, goodness. We're a mess. What do we have? What do we have? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also guys all sign.
Okay. Are we all set? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Adjustment meeting of October 25, 2017. Can we have our roll call, please?
Chairman Elliott,
Here.
Mr. Urbowski,
Here.
Mr. Burris,
Here.
Mr. Eisner,
Here.
Ms. Turner.
Present.
Thank you. Can we pass over the minutes temporarily until we come back to the end of the meeting, and then we'll take care of those if we could. Our next item on the agenda is number 3. We have a short announcement from our legal counsel, please.
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at the hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board wishing to disclose ex parte communication or conflicts of interest tonight?
The only thing I wanted to note is that I do live on Chesapeake Drive.
Okay.
I do not know the property owners, the Tinsleys personally, but I do live on Chesapeake, so I'm very familiar with the property.
Okay.
I know the applicants. I've never represented them, and I haven't seen them for quite a while.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself? You've been sitting
Sure.
in the audience for a long time.
Sure. My name is Patrick Perez. I'm an attorney at the city attorney's office, and I've been tagging along, kind of
Appreciate it.
filling in.
Thank
I'm
you.
the alternate, so.
Perez, your last name?
Patrick Perez. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Thank you.
I also passed by the house a couple of times as well.
Sure. That's good. That's fine. Anyone wishing to make any testimony this evening, if they could please stand and raise your right hand. to be sworn in. Includes the applicant, if the applicant wishes to
You're going to
speak,
testify. Please stand and accept the oath.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony they're about to give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So sworn.
Thank you. All right. Let's begin with our staff presentation. And we have someone.
Yeah, Louis Cern, I'll be presenting staff comments this evening. This application is for to authorize a variance to allow circular driveway and one additional driveway for a single-family residence. Section 12900C1, driveway and access management permits for 1 and 2 family dwellings to have a circular driveway or a second driveway. This subject property is at 504 Chesapeake Drive. The applicants are requesting a variance to utilize both a circular driveway and an additional driveway from a separate street frontage for a single-family residence. And the property is located at the intersection of Chesapeake Drive and Doric Court. The proposed circular driveway will be off of Chesapeake Drive with the second driveway off of Doric Court. The residence is being rebuilt following a fire. Previously, the house had 2 driveways, one from each street frontage. With this recent renovation, the applicants have proposed maintaining driveway access along both street frontages, and they've converted the driveway along Chesapeake Drive to a circular driveway. In their application, the applicants have indicated that the circular driveway along Chesapeake Drive is needed because on-street parking and non-residential traffic along this roadway create access problems to their house. The circular driveway also aligns with and approximates the width of a driveway serving a nursing home that is located directly across the street, thereby improving safety and access. The driveway along Doric Court will be utilized for parking in the rear of the property of a large recreational vehicle that the applicants own. The application has been reviewed in respect to the criteria of Section 215.02B of the Land Development Codes, and I'll briefly go over our findings. The first criteria is that the need for the requested variance arises out of the physical surroundings, shape, topographical conditions, or other physical or environmental conditions that are unique to the specific property involved. Our finding is that the need for the variance is due to the location of the subject property on a corner, the location and width of the adjacent non-residential driveway, and street access limitations created by frequent non-residential on-street parking in this vicinity. The second criteria, that the condition or special circumstances peculiar to the property have not been self-created or have resulted from an action by the applicant. The circumstances that we noted are not self-created, nor do they result from actions by the applicant. The third, that literal enforcement of the requirements of the City of Tarpon Springs Land Development Code would have the effect of denying the applicant's reasonable use of the property. Our finding is that literal enforcement of the driveway standards would restrict the subject property to a single circular driveway on one frontage or a single standard driveway access on each road frontage. Because of the alignment and width of the driveway across the street and access limitations in the vicinity of this lot due to the non-residential traffic and on-street parking, reasonable use of the property would be restricted without the requested variance. In regard to criteria number 4, the granting of the variance will not confer any special privilege that is not allowed for other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. Our finding is that access to the subject property is restricted based on its location and adjacent uses. Granting of the variance will allow access that is commonly enjoyed by other properties in this area that do not possess the same access restrictions. In regard to criteria number 5, the granting of the variance will not substantially diminish property values in the surrounding area, substantially interfere with or injure the rights of others whose property would be affected by approval of the variance, or alter the essential character of the neighborhood or create a nuisance. Our finding is that the granting of the variance to allow a circular driveway and one additional standard driveway will not adversely affect, impact surrounding properties, Granting of the variance will likely improve traffic circulation along this segment of Chesapeake Drive. Staff has not received any responses to the notices that were sent out. Briefly, our findings of fact are as follows. The request is to authorize a circular driveway and one additional standard driveway serving a single-family residence. Number two, the roadway in front of the subject property allows on-street parking and includes a high percentage of non-residential traffic due to the location of a nursing home located directly across the street from the subject property. Number three, the circular driveway aligns with and approximates the width of a driveway serving a nursing home that is directly across the street from the subject property, thereby improving safety and access. Four, driveway along the secondary frontage will allow access to the rear of the site for parking of a recreational vehicle. Five, the conditions and special circumstances associated with this variance have not been self-created, nor have they resulted from action by the applicant. And finally, number six, granting of the variance to allow a circular driveway and one additional driveway will not adversely impact surrounding properties and will allow for safe and efficient traffic circulation in this area. Based on our findings, staff is recommending approval of this variance.
Thank you. You're entitled to cross-examine the staff if you like to, but they're recommending approval, so I don't think you want to do that. Snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So you're now, want to make your own little presentation. You're welcome to do so. Up at the podium, if you would. Okay, you're going to waive that? Okay, thank you. All right, board questions for anybody?
I have a question.
George?
I have no problem with the way it's presented or the approval that you're requesting. My problem is
Can you speak into the mic, George?
Yeah. Why we have selective recommendations. For instance, in the past, we had a citizen who was asking to build his garage adjacent to the house. So when he goes, parks his car at night, doesn't get wet if it rains. And the city said no. This one, the city is highlighting the point of a recreational vehicle. Why this selective thinking by the city?
Well, I'm not familiar with the previous case. I think in this case, we have the adjacent uses that create circulation issues in the area. And I think that's primarily the factor for our recommendation in this case for the circular driveway. And because of the shape of the property, I think the driveway along Doric Court, again, it's a circulation issue. But I didn't note that it will allow the RV to park behind the residence as opposed to being parked in front of the residence, which I think would be more desirable.
Thank you.
Good point.
That's fine.
Anybody else? Reisner? Jackie?
I do. As I said, I live on Chesapeake on the opposite end, right before the trailer park. So I did want to say that for those who may not be familiar with this property, this is a welcome addition to our street. The home that was torn down and this new structure that it replaced, it was a visual and emotional eyesore, shall we say. And I believe our street has benefited from this new addition. A question I did have, and this may be for the attorneys, is just trying to make sure I understand, all the rules, is, prior to this construction, there were two different addresses. There were two separate properties, owned by the Tinsleys and another entity. So now, it looks like you have merged it into like kind of one address. Does that make sense? If I may, I don't know whom I'm supposed to direct this inquiry to.
How about the applicants? Somebody want to get up there and answer the question? Please. Mike, if you could go by
The address next door to it is 506, and what you see on it right now is 506G,
Right.
which was put on there for mail purposes, basically what it was, or for if there were an emergency of some sort.
Right.
The the properties that for tax purposes have, if you look at the tax rolls, they're one property.
Because I believe that was my question, because I believe, the property, records are part of our packets there, and that's where my question was. So then my question, if they are then for the tax purposes, which I understand now you have one property, your resident, your home, your primary residence, and then this secondary structure. So the rules that we are to look at that talk about driveways that have no more than 2 points of entry, if we are looking at it from the standpoint of this is now one property, they technically would have 4 points of entry. The circular driveway being 2, the driveway off Doric being 3, and then the driveway for your residential home being 4. Again, I don't know if these rules are applying for, that's why I'm asking, the attorneys or staff, are the rules applied for this property, the G property, if you will, the
Yeah.
garage property, or for what the Tinsley's own as one address for, on the tax rolls?
You need to get up on the microphone, please, be picked up on the tape, and if you could identify yourself, please, sir.
I'm William Sexton. I'm Mike's builder and agent on this project. When we built the structure, the city, and we were permitted as 504 Chesapeake. So that's how it was permitted. I have the drawing with the permit number on it that says 504 Chesapeake. So that's how it was permitted.
And from a planning perspective, it is a separate legal lot of record. They have one tax ID number. They could be, it could be assigned its own tax ID number and sold to a different owner. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate the
permitting
I
purposes.
appreciate the clarification, just because in case we encounter these sort of situations on future applications.
I have some questions. If anybody else wants to go ahead of me, it's fine. Okay, Mr. Sexton, my compliments on your written presentation. Did a very fine job. Thank you. I see the survey shows that there's some waterfront property. There's a waterfront parcel. Goes out to the water, but on the property appraiser's back up here, it says that it's not waterfront. It's kind of academic, but is there waterfront property attached to this house, like the survey shows? Yeah, you could. You still own this?
Yeah.
No, but it's blocked. I was out to the property yesterday and it was blocked off over here, but,
What happened,
Can you,
the
just-
previous owners, they had owned this entire area. When they added on them to their house, their pool, they took part of the property and then they left this strip that went out to the water. They thought that it was-
well, it will.
But there's no other way.
All right, thanks, Mike. I see that the driveways are already built.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is an after-the-fact variance, is that?
Yes, sir.
what we're saying? Were those driveways shown on the permit when you got the city
First
approval?
driveway were, but they were both inspected by the city. They came out and, we were trying to get a final and, the guy that inspected it said, all you need is this one tree and change the clean out in the sidewalk to a
Can you
brass.
put the mic up by your, I'm sorry.
That change the clean out to a brass one and you should get your CO.
I don't know if that doesn't answer my question. So on your permit application, you just had the one
One driveway, but both driveways were inspected.
driveway on Doric and one driveway on
No, we had one
Chesapeake?
driveway just on Chesapeake. And the reason it became a circular, it's still a certain width, but we put a landscape buffer in there because the trucks next door keep backing in and when it's solid. But both driveways, or the circular and the one on Doric, were inspected by the city.
Were they approved by the city? Probably not.
Yes.
They were approved.
Yeah.
So why are we here?
Well, I think building, there was, the guy made a mistake. Zoning was the one that caught it when we turned in the final survey.
Nice. Okay. Just in the neighborhood, is driving around a little bit, like within 100 or 200 feet, I saw 9 circular driveways on Chesapeake and
I
on
have one.
Doric. I have one too, and I didn't get a variance, and it's more than 28 feet.
But
So-
I believe if the variance is because with the circular driveway gives you 2 points of entry to the street, and then the driveway off a door, it gives you a third point of entry onto a
the other
street.
thing I
So
think
you
is
are
that-
only allowed 2, am I correct, staff?
That's correct. You can have 2 single access driveways or 1 circular without a variance.
I read the code a little bit, and it's not really clear. I kind of concur with what you're saying, but it could be a little more specific.
Uh-huh.
What it says is that each development is permitted 1 driveway per street frontage, providing the following additional requirements also apply. You can have a circular driveway if it's less than 28 feet of total width. And this came up last year. I asked the planner, what was the reason for this restriction of 28 feet? And is it aesthetics or planning or traffic? And there was no answer. So there's no reason why there's a 28-foot minimum width that I know of, and anybody else is welcome to answer that question. My driveway widths are more than 28 feet. I never got a variance, and this is after the code was enacted, for whatever benefit that may be. All right, are we ready for the question? Any further comments, Mr. Eisner?
I still don't even know why this came up for a variance, but
All right, if we're ready for the question, is there a motion?
motion to approve?
Chair, did you want to see if there's any public comment on this?
Anybody, thank you, sir. Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none? Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
Still, my motion stands.
Okay, and there's a second discussion on, Kim, a question?
Can you repeat the motion, please?
My motion is to approve.
And the second was from? Right here. Mr. Urbaski. Any discussion on the motion? All right then, let's have a roll call, please.
Ms. Turner,
Approve?
Mr. Eisner,
Approve?
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Urbowski,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes. Okay, there's a couple of extra surveys if you want them, thank you. All right, your variance has been granted, and
Some
you're
extra
already
pictures
built,
if you-
so.
Just kidding.
Other stuff.
And thank you again for making our street much better. Yes, I'm at the very end.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
And
Next
thanks
to
for
Nancy
building in
Ward.
Tarpon Springs, and it's a sad story with that house.
Nancy Ward, that there at the very end.
Better days ahead.
meet you.
On your side of the street,
Okay, thank
the last house before the trailer park. Yep. On the right, on your side of the street, the last house before the trailer park, you know where Nancy Ward lives? That's probably been there forever and a day.
Okay, Sharon. Okay, thank you.
Well, you're always welcome to a
Thank you, we
cocktail.
should appreciate you.
Is that the one?
No, I wish, eventually. But yes, I'm taking, with
All right,
great
we've got-
interest, all y'all's
Jackie,
work.
we've
so
still got
appreciate it.
some
Oh,
items
yeah,
to
oh,
take
they're
care of.
making me go to work. I'm so sorry, sir.
Mr. Tinsley?
Socialize on my own time. We're making plans for beverages here.
Just kidding.
Focus.
All right, let's get back to the agenda, please. Let's go back to item number 2, minutes of our August 9 special meeting. Any comments from the board?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir, Mr. Burris.
Page 1, minutes, Board of Adjustment, City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, a regular session, and then we have paragraph 1, basically special session. Which one is it? Right on the top.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, the fourth line, Kim, you correct that? See that, a special session, August 9?
It should be special session for both.
Right.
Good find there.
He reads this stuff.
Correct.
All right, any other comments on the minutes themselves from anybody? Your motion?
I motion to accept, approve, whatever you want to call it.
Okay,
Second.
any opposed? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right, my opinion that the motion carried unanimously. This has to go to the city commissioners, and there is a letter, short letter to the city commissioners, which you've just gotten tonight, that the chairman has prepared, and you're welcome to make any corrections you like. It says to the honorable mayor and members, city of Tarpon Springs.
Chair, I don't want to interrupt you. This letter, if you're making, you cannot do any action on this letter tonight. It has not been noticed. If you'd like to, as a comment, you can read the letter into the minutes. That's fine, but there should be no discussion on this. And
All right, well, can we sign the letter?
I would recommend not, because that sounds like an action to me. You can send the letter personally to the city manager, and the city manager can present to the board of commissioners. But there was no agenda for this letter tonight, so the public has not had an opportunity to be noticed of it and talk about it.
Any thoughts from the board on this cover letter to the city commissioners?
I was fairly certain that this was supposed to be on the agenda. I mean, I watched the last few minutes of the last meeting just before I left the house. And the attorney said that we couldn't talk about it then, that we needed to notice it for this meeting. And apparently that didn't happen.
Mr. Genser? Can you speak to the mic over there, Kim?
This is John Glenzer. I'm an alternate on the board, and that was my understanding also. And we had to miss the September meeting, and thus it was rolled over to the October meeting. But I thought after the special session, it was understood that it would be on the next agenda, and we'd be able to present it.
Thank you, John. I, for one, see no harm in just signing this letter as a courtesy of the city commissioners. I'm going to sign my name.
My ship sailed already.
No decision other than please find attached this. Where do you want to sign?
All right. We can discuss it, what I'm going to sign.
Okay. Related to the minutes, we had a discussion about our rules of procedure and the chairman making these orders, signing the orders, and there were several that I did not sign. And I wanted you to get a copy of the letter from the city attorney, which I got August 30th, stating I was to come in and sign those letters, just to let you know what happened. So the next day I came in to sign the orders, and in fact they were not ready, and I had to wait a week or so for them to be ready. But just for the record, I want you to be aware of the fact that those 4 or 5 orders over the last couple of years, they were hanging fire, have now been signed and taken care of.
Were they adjusted or left as?
No, I just signed whatever was put in front of me that our clerk provided. That's what the rules said. That's what the attorney's letter said. Come in and sign it, so I signed it. Didn't read it. All right, the next item is our minutes of August 26th. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
Make a motion. Approve.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any corrections? All right, then. Number 5, staff comments. We have some new faces, maybe?
Yes, I wanted to introduce Pat McNeese, the new senior planner. She will be in charge, the staff person in charge of this board, so I'll be working with her on the next agenda item, so I will be here for that meeting, but she will be taking over, and I'm sure she's looking forward to working with you.
Thanks.
Would you like to make a little presentation?
No, just glad to be here. It's my 3rd day. And, thanks for the welcome, Louise.
Well, at some point, we'd like to know where you're from or a little bit of history, but
Just real quick, my last position was with Hernando County. Over the years, I've done mostly Florida stuff. Florida Keys for many years, Monroe County and in consulting, and moved out of Florida and moved back mostly because of my mom. You know how that goes. To Hernando,
Well, we're
and now
glad to
down
have
here.
you. It's an interesting city, and we've got a
Yes.
great need
very.
for our planning staff, and they do a good job.
Thank you.
All right. Any other staff comments? We've got from Mr. Perez already on board. Thank you.
No, sir.
I just wanted to note the next meeting will be on November 29th, and we do have at least one application.
Thank you. Board comments?
Well, do we need to get this item put on that agenda
The letter?
for November?
Okay, there's a request to put this letter on the agenda for November.
I mean, you can certainly turn it into the city before that, but let's have it officially on our radar so we can discuss it here on the record.
So if we do, as we've started with Chairman Elliott, we've signing this, submitting this to staff to have this included on the agenda.
Yes, you can,
It will be included on the agenda for November.
whoever is making the agendas, if they put some type of discussion on however you want to phrase it, that's fine, as long as it's noticed.
Okay, this chorus,
That we need to do as a board to ensure that we can do what we have in our powers to ensure this is on the agenda.
That's a question for staff that's making the agenda.
I'll work with the director and with the attorney's office and Kim, and we'll see if this gets on the agenda.
okay, so that's your question. So it'll be on the agenda. We can sign the letter. You'll hold it in the meantime, Kim. And then after that, it will go to the city commissioners, and we can talk to the city commissioners as a group if we want to, because the city attorney's office has said that that would not be a violation of the Sunshine Law, since it doesn't involve foreseeable action of this board. So we can do 2 or 3 or 4 at a time. All right, any other comments? Seeing and hearing none, then the meeting is adjourned at 7:30. Thank you.
I would prefer,
Becky
that it
has
could
it
just
again.
be held.
Thank you.
Okay, just hold on to that until next
I
month.
seriously watched the last minute.
Do I need to
I mean,
sign
not
it?
of this, I'm talking about the last
The
meeting
last
of the
one we
week.
have.
Yeah,
And it
I'm
just
on
said,
contract to do some other projects for the city too, so yeah.
And I'll be
Yeah, so just been helping Heather out, but she's been.
so,
I
what,
should have done it first.
I don't know.
We have no discussion.
All right, yeah, you too. Good evening.
Exactly,
I agree.
exactly.
It's a pleasure seeing you all.
Thank you.
Thank you as always.
Kim,
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Good meeting.
This is a meeting from 2008. If you really get bored someday, you'll want to put that in and crack open a bottle of something. It's hysterical.
Oh, yeah, it looks much better.
Do you know the history?
The other letter?
We haven't even had.
I hear you. What is the,
I'm not
yeah,
completely
I
sure,
don't think
but
the commission is favorable to that.
we're having our
not this
first staff meeting tomorrow, so
have you seen the traffic?
get to find out.
I thought that was my favorite. All right, just hang on to it.
I know, you can. Today, I was like, oh my God. I
No,
couldn't make a left turn into my own office. I was like, my God.
So Pat will be the staff member. Yeah, Heather's still overseeing this, and I'm going to be assisting for the
Yeah,
next
and that-
meeting since
that is,
it's her third
wow.
day.
Anything that happens there has got to be better.
Especially.
And